Hello everyone, it is Joe here from OmniPoke, and today we are here with Rhys Williams, and as well as that we have Jack as well, because we are going to be doing week 2 of our Spotlight feature to the channel, and this time is going to be our first ever interview. And basically this week it's been inspired by an article rather than a video, and that's an article on the Charizard Lounge from Andrew Wambolt talking about Vespiquen Vileplume, and Rhys is a UK player who's managed to win a tournament with the deck, so we thought it would be a good place to start the discussion and get talking about this deck, because it's much more than just a rogue concept. I think it's actually a very viable deck in the format. So my first question, I guess, is what made you pick this deck, Rhys?
Okay, so a few things in standard. I didn't like most of them, but I played Yveltal and I didn't like it. Really hated it, and I just sort of thought, I don't know, it suits. I think it suits my playstyle. And I was just like, just play this and hope for the best.
Yeah, I've seen you play lock stuff before. Is that a feature in your game normally, or is it just because of the reliance of other decks at the time, or what is it really?
It's actually, I don't know. I think it might be my playstyle. Jamie, one of my opponents, actually picked up on it and was like, you always seem to be turning up. I mean, I played Toad at Nationals. I played Trevenant at Newport Regionals.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I might like my lock stuff. I like it when you can establish a board and just sort of go, yeah, my board's better than yours.
Yeah, I mean, I think my personal play style is a lot more locky compared to Joe's, but I think me and Joe have very different play styles, and I much like the being able to control the board kind of play style, and this deck definitely says that. I mean, with the Vileplume and so much draw support, and then even like the single red card as well, there's just so much disruption whilst still hitting really hard with Vespiquen. So yeah, I really like the concept of the deck.
So, had you done much testing with it before you started? Because I think the article came out like just a week before the tournament that you went to, or like during that week or something.
Yeah, I think it was about a week before. I picked up the deck and was testing it on like the Tuesday, the Wednesday before. Just literally not testing it against anything, just sitting with a mat and my deck, just drawing it over and over, seeing how often you hit like the turn 1 Plume, how many Pokemon you get in the discard turn 1, how to maximise the amount you get in, and how to sort of adjust if you need to. But I was going to play it on Saturday at Brighton, then thought I'm going sort of 140 miles to Brighton. I don't really want to just play this and then realise it's really bad, because it seemed good, but I mean you say that in theory, and then some decks are just terrible. So I played Yveltal, obviously regretted it. I come 5th. And then I was just like, stuff Yveltal, I don't want to play that anymore. And Trevenants are really bad because Yveltal's good.
Sure.
And then, so I was just like, I'll just play this and hope for the best.
Yeah, well, you definitely seemed confident with the deck, because I was actually your round 1 opponent, wasn't I? And you were definitely like, you weren't making any misplays or anything. It was seemed to be ticking along quite nicely. So if you want to just maybe run down the event for us, talk about a few matchups, maybe some standout games that you had. Maybe don't mention mine. But no, yeah, tell us how your day went with the deck.
Just, I think quite a few for a cities. More than what I thought for a Sunday. For Sunday cities, I thought, like, well, certainly less than that. So, round 1 I played you with Entei, and I lost game 1, I think I did, then won game 2, in game 3, I got the crazy, you started Charizard, and I got the crazy turn 1, Be Revenge, knockout on Charizard, yeah. And then game 2, I remember that you just scooped and had nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, round 2. Yeah, I played Entei again. Jamie. This was, I won the first game, then we ran out of time. So I just got the turn 1 Vileplume, but the game sort of went a lot slower than the first one, because I had to Sky Return a lot just to get damage down, really. And he was flame screening, so we weren't really getting anywhere with the game, because he resists the 30, and then my Sky Return does nothing. Yeah. But then there's no damage builds up on my board, so I was trying of force him into the second attack, so then I could be revenge.
Right. Okay.
So then, yeah. I say again, which is obviously not what I wanted to see with a grass deck. So that was Tom Hall, and turn 1 he went first, and turn 1 he hexed, and I figured out from that moment on, hex turn 1 against Vileplume is insanely good against this deck because it cuts off the Shamans and the Unknown. I only played 3 Sycamore, so you have no draw power whatsoever. So I was probably going to get rolled quite quick, but then he flipped double tails on Super Scoop Up.
Okay.
So I managed to basically just develop a board because he started Shaman.
Right. So I think it was like a weird Entei deck, wasn't it? He played different techs in there. I think he even played Toad.
Yeah, he had Toad. He was going to Quaking Punch me turn 2 and just lock me out of the game because I didn't have very many Pokemon in my discard, but he missed the Super Scoop. But he also played Gallade. I saw that in the Maxi. And it was just, lots of random bits and bobs that you just sort of put in. And you just
you wouldn't expect Hex in an Entei like at all.
Oh no, because it obviously you're going for speed, but the Hex is really good in Entei. Obviously, not if you're going for speed. It was really good against this deck.
I can see it being one of those things though where in other matchups you're looking for a combo piece and you top deck that instead and you're left doing nothing for a turn, so it's that sort of trade-off that you have to make with Entei, especially because it's so reliant on speed.
I can see it just sitting in your hand and then you Shaman just getting less with setup because you've just got your hand clogged.
So carry on then.
Okay, so round 4 I got paired against Entei again. So this was Sam McClue. And I just had enough of playing Entei. And he offered me the ID, despite the fact that I would have to win another game to get in Kurt. And I just took it, because I'd had enough of playing Entei just over and over. And there was a decent amount of matchups that I thought were better than Entei on 201, where if they won, they would probably get paired against me. So I took the ID there, and then we played one game just for fun, and I went first. Turn 1 Vileplume, and his hand was just items.
I actually think it's a good matchup. Even though typing goes against you, I think the deck is so trainer reliant that, especially with a red card, it was in the games against you when you red carded where I was literally just dead.
Yeah, the trouble is if they get like Charizard with Assault Vest, that's really hard to deal with. Entei with Muscle Band is quite hard because it KOs Vespiquen.
Sure.
Like if they're only doing 60, it doesn't matter as much. But if they're one hitting, it's just really bad because you sort of win the game because they can power up 1 or 2 attackers and then they just run out of stuff because their hand's full of items.
Yeah, especially because they play a low basic count and their only search is Ultra Ball. So normally you're winning that game by benching them rather than taking 6. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So after that wave of Entei, what were your other games?
Okay, so now we completely switched. We've gone to the Entei counter decks. We've gone to Totina. So round 5 I got Alex, and I won game 1. I didn't get turn 1 Plume, but I turn 1 red carded him. He started Shaman, and his hand I think was 2 Double Dragon and like VS Seekers or something. So he just conceded straight away. Because I had a workable hand. So it was like, I'd whip, just completely open the door, and then he was like, give me nothing on red card. So red card won me that game. So it's the power of red card, really.
I think red card, looking at the list, I think red card is...
It's such a big swing card. I think it won you games against me as well, because there's definitely times when I was... Yeah, it says a lot that you made a single space for it because there's so much. Everything else is consistency. Like that's the one tech card in your entire list, basically. So it says a lot that it really helps the deck.
Like when I was testing, I was seeing how often you get the turn 1 red card, and it seems sort of like just above 50%. So I was considering putting 2 in, just because of how much. Because if you can still burn it, like if you have 1, you can play it, then just play another one. Obviously, your opponent just loves it, just sitting there shuffling, like in your turn. You're just like, yeah, but I liked it, but I didn't like it enough to cut like a consistency card, like an acro bike or something for it.
Sure. So what would you say, like, overall? So as you carried on, were you establishing? I guess you only really found out your Entei matchup, but were there any really hard matchups, really easy matchups? I guess that it's so reliant on your own start more than what your opponent can do.
Yeah, more or less comes down to your opponent's sort of what they do. Like, I mean, good matchups. Toadbat seems really good as long as if I get the Plume and then get 7 Pokemon in discard, it's like you just knock out Toad. So unless they can like small
and there's never be a response.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So well, this actually gets back to round 5 with Toadina. If as soon as they Chaos Wheel, you lose pretty much straight away, unless you have like Vespiquen DC on bench. So that's what happened in the other 2 games against Alex. He just Chaos Wheeled and then I couldn't do anything. So I was on a loss. So I was on winning in the last round. So I got played against Toadina again. It was Ben who. Game 1 I managed to win just by getting. I got a Vileplume out and then just sort of got a good setup. But he was getting his Giratina powered, and I couldn't do. But I can't Lysander because I don't play it. So I had to have Vespiquen DC active and Vespiquen with 2 DCE on the bench because I thought he had Zerotic in hand. So I'll take the knockout with the active. He promotes Giratina, drops Zerotic on the bench, and then knockout, and then I just bring up Vespiquen and knock out his Giratina and basically win. So I had to put the 2 DC on my Vespiquen.
Yeah, I think that's a play not a lot of people would have seen, but definitely strong there against Giratina. It's like essential, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I even had to like intelligence gathering, I think, for a turn against. I could have knocked out his Toad, but I was like, no. Intelligence gathering for 20. And I didn't draw anything, but then I had about 5 cards left in deck with 2 DCE. And I just drew the DCE next turn. So I wanted to wait till I got the 2 down on the Vespiquen.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah.
So into Top Cut then.
Okay, so in Top Cut I played people who I'd played all day. I played 3 of my round opponents again in Top Cut. So I had quite a stacked Swiss, I think. I had a tough time. So in top 8 I got Jamie again with Entei. That's my round 2 opponent. And I think if I remember correctly, I actually went first, got turn 1 Plume, and then lost. And I'm not really sure how. I think he just managed to. I think it was a crucial turn where he Giovanni'd for +20, and then flame screen. Because he didn't have very many energy on his board. And I was thinking he's got to put all his his blacksmith. He'll have to put it on the active, and then I can just clear that Entei. But he Giovanni'd for +20. Because it does the +20 before weakness and resistance, it KOs Vespiquen with flame screen. So I lost that. Then won game 2, just turn 1 Vileplume, what it does. And then game 3, he started Charizard, had a huge turn 1 where he benched like 2 or 3 Shaman, played like half his deck down, Compressor, and he was Compressor away like it's Assault Vest, which is good because they're items, you don't want them. But so he was doing that. So I looked at my hand turn 1 because he left Charizard active with no energy, and I just sort of went, you know what, stuff it. Vileplume's not going to be very good, and just Compressed and discarded my Vileplumes. And
the whole lines.
Yeah, everything went in straight into the discard, and then turn 1 I got 16 Pokemon in the discard. Turn 1, 180 with Vespiquen. But his hand was like full of blacksmith, I think. So what would happen in the game is I would have actually ran out of attackers, but time got called. So we ran out. So because I was ahead on prizes, I basically won. When if that had gone to a full game, I would have lost because he had like blacksmith DCs in hand.
Right.
And he had like 3 Entei on the bench. So he got a really good setup turn 1.
Yeah, that's sort of the thing, isn't it? As long as your opponent they know what they're playing against, they can play out as much as they can. Then sometimes you have especially if you do develop Vileplume. Like, you chose not to, so that you could continue getting Vespiquens, but definitely when you establish your own lock, it's a lot harder for you to keep finding attackers turn after turn. So it is a trade-off, and it's an interesting pick when to go YOLO Vespiquen and when to keep Vileplume around. It's an interesting decision you have to make. So following on from there, I guess.
Okay, so top 4 I got Sam again. That's who I ID'd against earlier. Entei again. I mean, I seem to just get voted against Entei all day. Game 1, I think I whiffed the Plume and just sort of ended up getting rolled really by the fire attackers. They just beat down the Vespiquen. And then what he decided to do is he decided to, rather than let me go first and like establish a Plume, and then open up for what happened in top 8 with like because Vespiquen can take quick prizes. Like going second, it could pretty much get a prize turn 1. He decided to just scoot game 2 straight away. Didn't even like.
That's smart, I think, because I wasted 10 minutes waiting for you to finish your turn and then realised I've lost.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really intelligent play from him.
Yeah, I was sitting there going sort of like, oh my this game's going to take 20 minutes. The last game will take 5 or 10. I might, as long as I can draw okay, I'll be fine. But then he scoops, and I was sort of a bit like, oh yeah, that's actually a better play.
Yeah.
But it might have been. I mean, you never know. I might have opened my hand and it'll have been all glooms and Comby, but.
So the final game, I guess.
Yeah, so in the final, I got Alex again with Toadina. So game 1, he got the turn 1 Hex, turn 2 Chaos Wheel. So I just scooped straight away. Couldn't do anything. And then game 2, basically what happened is I couldn't... I got quite a slow start, but so did he. I think I whiffed the turn 1 Plume. And then there was like 2 super scoop up flips where if he flipped heads, he could have picked up Chaos Wheel. And I would have just scooped. It was like 11:30 at night, and I wanted to go home. Like there was a full Carabas that come from Cov, and everyone had to sit there and wait. And the tournament finished at like 5, and we didn't leave till 1:45.
Yeah.
And then so game 3 of the final was pretty much just he started Toad, and then I started Comby. He couldn't get an edge on Giratina turn 1. And then I got the knockout turn 1, and then time was cool. So the finals was a bit eventful. The game 3 was sort of a bit of a blowout, really, with time. Because Alex just sort of sat there and went, I can't KO Vespiquen. I can't take the prizes. Because time got called on my first turn, which was the second turn of the game.
Okay. So really, you only played against Entei and Toadina the whole day. Have you tested other matchups since then?
Not really, to be honest. I'm in my last year at sixth form, so I haven't really had any time. But I think the decks, more or less, you do the same thing, more whatever the matchup.
Yeah.
So you just get Vespiquens, you get Vileplumes out, but then if you're actually at a tournament, you sit down, you have to sort of judge it, whether you need to get the Vileplume out or not.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's like what you said. Even though you weren't playing against anyone, it was still really good testing just to do dummy hands.
Yeah, I think a skill with the deck. This is what I've heard Andrew Wambolt say. This, which is obviously the maker of the deck. All the credit goes to him for the list. I just took the whole lot, all 60 cards. But he said that it takes a lot of small decisions. Like with your opening hand, you can easily draw like Trainer's Mail and Acrobike and Battle Compressor, and it's the order of what to play them in.
Yeah, so like, sequencing for what you're digging for, stuff like that.
Yeah. The ways to maximise the amount of bad stuff going in the discard.
I think that was when I was assessing the deck, the thing that was one of the most difficult things just to get your head around straight away, just because there's these little sequencing things can often depend on how well the turn 1 goes. And looking at the list now, I think after playing, well, I guess the biggest question is, would you change anything after having a day of everything against Entei, or just a day with the deck in general? Do you think there's any changes you'd make if you were going to another tournament with playing this deck?
Okay, so the one thing that I would consider cutting, but probably wouldn't, is the Bunnelby. I never liked benching it because it's just like if I drew it in my turn one hand, it would go in the discard. Unless I'd already dumped a load of stuff and I knew I needed to Rototiller, I would just immediately get rid of it. Like, I wouldn't actively compressor it away. But if I drew it, I'd Ultra Ball it away, because if you bench Bunnelby, I just feared it getting Lysandered. But because this deck, you burn through so many cards turn one that you can just sort of your opponent can Lysander, and then you can't get out the active, and you can't just sit there drawing and passing because you're going to deck out first.
Yeah, it's weird. It's almost counterproductive in what Bunnelby's there to do. Like, it's meant to recover those DCEs if you lost them, but really just putting it down, you're spending a DCE to either retreat or to just waste turns using Rototiller. Even if you are getting DCEs back, it's wasting turns. You've already attached a DCE. The net gain is so low; it's very minimal. It's not actually that strong.
The thing that Samuel McClue, my top 4 opponent, what he said is when he saw the list, he said he would have put in a basic Grass Energy, just to make the Bunnelby a bit better, really. Because if you put a DCE on the Bunnelby, as you said, you just lose one, and so it's like your net gain, yes, is 1 DCE, but is it really that good?
Yeah, worth the turn that you spend using Bunnelby to get the DCE back. It's probably by then it's not as useful as you'd first think it would be. I think after just hearing your report, what some matchups that you'd perhaps on paper deem pretty unfavourable, like you say you played Entei all day, which naturally has weakness on you. You'd think, oh yeah, Entei easily has that matchup. But I think you've just described how excellently you can deal with the matchup so well. I think the deck does have pretty good matchups across the board. I think. What would you say your worst matchup is? Obviously you haven't tested too much because you only played against Entei pretty much that day. But what would you say is your worst matchup? Do you think?
In theory, or definitely just weird stuff like Wobbuffet bats. I mean, they get up Wobbuffet, and you're just sort of like, yeah, I have no luck anymore. But I'm not really sure. It seems good against Toad. Stuff that can get a lot of low-cost attackers out that can kill your Vespiquen or deny the DCE. Is really good against the deck. Just decks that can get a lot of attackers out and get them powered up and get them retaliating against the Vespiquens before the Vespiquen overwhelms your opponent's board.
Yeah, I feel like it almost needs to be a non-EX deck. And one of the biggest swing cards I found is Jirachi promo, something you didn't really have to come across. But do you feel like maybe you need to tech for that in future? I know there's talk about the Toxicroak EX being played to get around Aegislash, but I'm not sure about going down that route. But something for Jirachi maybe?
Well, I think Jirachi, I never come across it on the day, but if they bring up Jirachi against me and do 10 and knock off my double colourless, most of the time I'm either going to retreat to Jirachi or just leave the Vespiquen active and just pass, because then they're not protected by the Stardust, and it's only got 60, so you can sort of you can double Skyreturn KO it.
Yeah, that's what when me and Jack played the matchup, it ended up you have to because of course they can retreat away the Jirachi once they've used it. So basically it stays a threat on the bench because you obviously play no Lysander. So from there you have to continue to Skyreturn until you're in a position prize-wise when you can accept that another DC is going to be discarded the following turn. So it's almost like it's a check, but not really like an insta-win against the deck. I feel, at least.
Yeah. I think the Jirachi promo is definitely strong against anything with special energy. But what you said a moment ago with the Aegislash, I find that if they're playing Aegislash, if they've just thrown one into your Yveltal list, it won't work because you can just Skyreturn. And although they only do 40 if they're attacking, but then you just pick up the damage and it goes.
I feel like it's more of a stall card. Like you say, if you've gone midway through your deck and then they still find themselves that one Aegislash that they play. It's almost like a mill card where they just draw past you to death rather than ever kill you. I think that's the point of the one lone Aegislash in these lists. I think a few Americans actually played it just in fear of this deck.
He did say that someone played an Aegislash in their Yveltal deck.
I think it was Max Armitage, I think.
Sounds
that's
about
just
right,
that's just a cold call, but yeah, I think it was him who played it. So fair play to him if he was that scared of that deck. So have you looked much into the new set? And if you have, would there be anything in there that could add something to the list? I feel like it's super tight already, so it'd have to be a very spectacular card. Maybe something like Delinquent I was thinking of, because you're already playing maximum stadiums. It could add another disruption factor, but at the same time, you know, they can get rid of useless items, something like that. I don't know, really.
I haven't really brushed up. You're going to have to remind me what Delinquent does.
Delinquent allows you to discard the stadium in play, and then forces your opponent to discard 3 cards from their hand of their choice, not random.
Okay, so is that a supporter?
Yeah.
So it seems strong with red cards.
Yeah, it's very strong with red card. That's one of the concepts.
If they draw a Pokemon and a supporter, they sort of have to choose one of the two. And if they discard the Pokemon, you can just still bench them.
Yeah, but then my argument would be, if you're making space for a Delinquent, would you not rather like a Lysander or one AZ, just in case you could develop Vileplume even before you found a Floatstone and have that option for you, something like that?
I think it's something to try out, but I'm not sure. I mean, I like just playing Sycamore, because it means that if you draw 2 Sycamore, it's like, Ultra Ball away Sycamore. And the one thing I hate with this deck is, because you're always thinning, so like you level ball in for like a Gloom, and you'll just Sycamore it away, you get very little Sycamore high fives across your deck. Not that most opponents would when you're playing Vileplume, but it sort of makes it... I don't know if it makes it less fun. It may be. I think we might have got one, Joe, in our game. Our best of 3.
So you've said you mentioned to me just earlier that you're going to more events. Is this a deck that you maybe back in Expanded? I know your next weekend is it? No, back in Standard. I mean, your next one's Expanded. But would you consider this again for Standard in future?
I'd look at it, mainly if I don't have any time to test, really, for tournaments. Because I found that it was quite... It took a while to learn how to do it on your own, but once you've... Like, I played Blastoise, and I played like a Speed Ray Quasideck last year. I think I've learned how to play your hand down and what order to play cards in. So I think that helped me in sort of being able to pick up the deck a bit quicker.
Sure.
But I'd definitely consider it. I think the Vileplume turn 1 is really strong, and Vespiquen just puts on that much pressure. It depends what decks really are in the meta.
Yeah, I agree. I still think at the moment, at least, it's not changed drastically from the last couple of weeks that you've played it. And I was really surprised. The cities I went to this weekend, no people played it. And I was really in fear of that deck because I think it's one of the best options that we have right now.
I was waiting to... I looked at the list of top cuts from, I think it was Chesterfield. I don't know which one you went to. Is that where you went?
That was me.
Yeah. And there were no Vespiquen Vileplume. I was like... I mean, normally, like, you see a deck win, and then the next week everyone's playing it. Yeah,
that's what I was expecting, but no one did. I thought at one point I was going to play it, but I didn't want to be that guy because I'm not a lock player really. Even though I have played Toad Guard before and Toad Tina, but I don't like playing lock decks. That was the only reason. I just thought I'd let other people troll, but no one wanted to that day for some reason. And I feel like it's not that. It's just that no one played it, not that it was played and didn't win. I feel like it would have been successful had people played it.
Right. And it's good to know just that I didn't make a load of people play it, and then they all just did really bad.
Yeah, it's better that way, isn't it? So yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. What's your points total now? Do you know?
Yeah, I'm on 213 out of 300.
Nice.
So
that's
but
close.
I've only done one. I've only got points from one city so far. So I've participated in 3. But I've only got points from 1. So if I just get sort of 20 or 30 from 3 more cities or a couple, then I've still got a few. I've got about 40 more I can get from league challenges. So it's just hitting up them. And I think I'm going at least 1 regional in the spring. So hopefully I won't need the points from that and be like just desperate to win. But hopefully I can get it.
Yeah,
I'm sure you will,
I'm
Reece.
sure you will. I think you know you're a really good player in the UK, so I think you're going to get it one way or another. The last thing I think I want to say is there anyone you want to give a shout out to? Just because obviously I know you go to a lot of events with your brother and stuff, and I know you test a lot. So if there's anyone you want to give a quick shout out to.
Okay, yeah. So I'll give a quick shout out to my brother. We didn't actually test for this one because he's gone back to uni, but he did congratulate me on winning. Definitely all my opponents on that day, I said their names individually as we went through, and special one to Alex. He made the finals actually really fun. We were playing at 11 o'clock at night, and we're all really tired, but it was still a really fun game. The judges I think were all quite nice. Nilo, he judged the final, then Nigel was head judge in the event. Then we also had Jeff judging as well, so he was nice to talk to. I think just generally, I think the tournament was nice enough. They spread out the tables a bit more after the juniors and seniors finished. So yeah, that's about it, I think.
Sounds good. I think I'm all done on mine. If there's anything else you want to say, Joe?
Yeah, I think we can sign off with that. Thanks so much, Rhys, for coming on to the first interview. It was brave of you to take the plunge.
Right, thanks, Joe and Jack. It was good to be here.
No problem.
Hope to see you again.
Yeah, and I'm sure Joe's going to attach some sort of video, at least showing off the deck, as well to this, so you can kind of see the list. But if he doesn't, the list is on the Charizard Lounge. If you do want to check out the list, there's a standard.
We'll link it. We'll link.
Yeah, there's a standard and expanded version of it. But obviously we were talking about the standard one today. But yeah, I think if I'm all done and Joe's all done. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack with Rhys and Joe. And we will see you in another video.